I regret asking that.
Open your mouth, prepare your tongue, because you're about to get a taste.
I cannot believe we've gone 12 episodes without me being able to talk about Final Fantasy.
Well, I know the doll is bad, so I gotta think the Dusty Balloon is less bad.
I mean, if all life everywhere ends, what have I lost?
Facial hair as a theme is not something I ever would have chosen.
So yeah, that's the one that Rock is just sweaty the whole time.
He's got that good pointy Jafar beard.
I've got 3 pages of AMA citations.
This is the Debate This podcast.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, a show where no one is right but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comics, video games, and how enjoyable Brie Larson is as Captain Marvel and a human being in general. Brie, if you can, at me about that. I think that's just great. Brie Larson is best.
She is a treasure.
Shannon's just looming behind Todd, shaking her head for everyone at home.
We're just lucky to live at the same time as Brie Larson lives. So as some of you may or may not know, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is slated to begin filming for the Eternals later this summer. You may not know what the Eternals are, and you know what? That's okay.
I don't know what the Eternals
totally
are.
Fine. No, I assumed
That's
so.
okay, Andrew. Todd just said so.
Hooray!
So, well, having said that, I am here as your Papa Bear storyteller, and today Papa's gonna take care of you.
I'm out.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm done.
I was waiting for that.
There's a me-shaped hole in the wall.
So let's go back a little bit. So a few weeks ago, our resident Kingdom Heart enthusiast Andrew Henderson took us on a 3-hour dive into a lore-filled nightmare, detailing the entire story of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, I'm never going to get that time back.
Neither are we.
And we skipped over a lot.
I would like to pose one correction. Kingdom Hearts enthusiast.
Yeah. He's recovering Kingdom Hearts enthusiast Andrew Henderson. And so to cope with that at the time, I double-fisted NyQuil and beers to handle what was going on. And so today, I'm going to do that to you, but with less need for self-medication while we talk about the Eternals. I want to give a kind of an overview of who they are, what's going on. And so, allowing me to talk at them today about a franchise obscure to most of us are Kyle the Flesh Harper, Andrew Thunder Girl Henderson, and Matt Meltman Cole.
With the power of melting.
I'm really disappointed that no one was the Stinky Diver.
You know, I thought about it, but that's
Kyle,
tough.
we are all of us the stinky diver.
All of us collectively. So, do you guys know anything about the Eternals?
Not a thing.
I know much more about the Eternals than I did about Kingdom Hearts. I don't know that much about the Eternals.
I know more about them than those two, but probably not as much as Todd.
Yeah, so so full admission, I knew a little bit about him to start this, and then I've done a lot of research, a lot of shoddily made YouTube videos where people are talking over comic strips that are passing in the background.
The best kinds.
My favorite.
How many spools of red yarn are on your wall?
yeah, I'm in the corner. Well, so we're gonna get into some of that actually, but my goal is to kind of give you a background in who they are, maybe some of the big names, some of the concepts, and then talk about, how they might fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because filming starts the end of this summer, the August, I think, 2019, and it's supposed to come out as one of the 2 slated movies in 2020. I don't know if they've set the full date yet, but that is my understanding.
Stop me if I'm getting ahead of you.
Yeah.
Have any of the Eternals appeared in the MCU yet?
So I'm gonna say yes with an asterisk on that,
Okay.
and I will come back to that. I'm glad you asked that. So I'm gonna jump into some of the background, and then we'll kind of go from there. So much like
Todd,
hold
on. Can you hold on a second?
Yeah.
Are you good? Okay. All right, sweet. Thanks.
I want everyone to know we are recording it Saturday at 3 p.m. Typically, we record
And
at
I've got to work at 6.
My man. So to kind of get things started, the Eternals were created by Jack Kirby about 30 years ago, which, if that is the only sentence that I had to say about the origin of the Eternals, that would be awesome, but it's not, because there's a lot more context there. For those who have kept track of Jack Kirby's resume, which no one did. Some people do. He,
But
I
you
didn't know
did.
that.
You
yeah,
did, and
I
that's what
did
matters.
in this one. So he left Marvel in 1970 and worked for DC for a bit, where he created their New Gods storyline, which specifically that is where the DC villain Darkseid came from, which everyone knows who, or at least of Darkseid.
He's like Apocalypse, right?
Yeah, kind of like Apocalypse, but more like Thanos. I mean,
okay.
there's been some pretty direct, I think,
Yeah,
ties
DC's
to.
got two kind of like outer space big bads that
Mhm.
are vaguely similar but different.
Okay.
Why did Jack Kirby leave DC, Todd?
Well, I don't necessarily know why he left, but I can tell you what he did when he did leave.
Okay.
He came back to Marvel, and after creating the New God storyline in the 70s, he created the Eternals in the like late 70s, early 80s, which effectively, I mean, it had huge parallels to it. So
Huge parallels, direct ripoff.
yeah, it's. I mean, there's. As we talk more about the Eternals, you'll be able to see like the Eternals are effectively gods of the Marvel universe. So, needless to say, he liked what he did so much he did it twice.
So this is like a Dante's Peak Heat kind of thing, or
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm trying to think of what is a good other like comic book comparison. But I mean, every DC hero is also in Marvel as a different hero, and vice versa.
The example I can think of to compare this is in the 80s, John Fogerty got sued by his record label for sounding too much like Creedence Clearwater Revival, the band he was also the lead singer and songwriter for.
Yeah, so
And that's what this is. Like, it's the same guy making the same thing, but under a different company, so he had to change the names a little.
gotcha. Like my favorite song, "Smooth" by Matchbox 20.
Yes.
there you go. So needless to say, there are definitely comparisons between the DC's New Gods and Marvel's The Eternals. And I mean, if you kind of look at some of the specifics of what we'll talk about, you may see those connections. I do not know much about DC's New Gods, so that's not really the topic of today's conversation. But you get to tuck that knowledge away into your little knowledge pouch, your knowledge
I
flap.
already forgot it.
That's enough.
All right.
We're done.
Good. So the base origin of the Eternals are that they, millions and millions of years ago, they are effectively evolved superhumans that were created by the Celestials from, I think, what they called proto-humans, so like Neanderthals in the evolutionary chain. Celestials turned those, pre-humans into Eternals as a means to defend the Earth.
Who are the Celestials? Is that like just like the first peoples?
So the Celestials are these cosmic beings, which we'll talk a little bit here. They are these supreme beings all across the universe that are like holding all this power.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, that's the big baby head man.
No, that's the Watcher.
Yeah, isn't he one of
that
those?
is. I don't know if he's technically a Celestial. He's not listed as one of the original ones, but he could be in the Marvel Cinematic
Isn't he
Universe.
an Eternal? Or is he not an Eternal either? I thought he
Oh,
was
I
an
thought
Eternal.
no. I was pretty sure the Watcher was a Celestial.
He might be a Celestial. So there's like the original 7 Celestials in the Marvel universe, but I think then they've branched out, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe has made more people Celestials, more things Celestials. So maybe not. Listeners, at me if the Watcher is a Celestial. I honestly don't know for the purpose of this. He wasn't one of the ones that created the Eternals back in the 70s. So there's at least that. But anyway, the Eternals were created by the Celestials as basically these human-esque people that were to defend Earth. So the Celestials' experiment on humanity to create Eternals has now been used to explain how certain humans develop superpowers. And that kind of retcon would include Titanians and Uranians, which are going to matter a little bit later. Those were beings that lived on this is the only
Now, how strong are Titanians compared to tungstens?
Oh, I deserve that.
Callback.
I deserve that. I'll leave that part there because we're going to talk more about beings that are Titanians here a little bit later. But the point being that outside of their run in the 80s, the Eternals didn't really have much traction as a Marvel franchise. It just kind of ended without resolution because it didn't really do that well. And honestly, they were kind of left alone until they were revisited in a Thor comic later, where they kind of tied up some of the loose ends and gave us a bit more information, but they were left bare and not really used until 2006 in a miniseries that updated their role in the Marvel Universe. So that was kind of what set the stage of them being viewed as kind of gods on Earth or gods in the universe for the Marvel Universe. And yeah, it didn't do well. They didn't sell. But apparently Kevin Feige has said that he's a big Eternals fan, which whether that's true or not, might just be his way of being like, no, it's going to be a great movie because I'm a fan. Or it could be his way of saying, no, we're going to do this because I make you all the money.
I guess you could argue, like Guardians of the Galaxy, nobody knew what the hell that was, so it's a clean slate.
Yeah.
They can pull what they want and leave what they want on the cutting board and make a good thing.
Question for clarification.
Yeah.
Do the Milky Way planets, like, does our solar system exist in the Marvel Universe?
I believe so. So we're going to talk about Titanians.
And
like,
is that like
Titan,
Saturn's Titan, or is that Thanos' Titan?
I think they're the same thing in this
Shit.
realm. I think they say that Titan is like a moon of Saturn, and Titan is the like his homeworld, and that just could be them crossing ideas at some point.
To accurately answer your question, the universe we
You
are.
just got
So I don't know about Titan. I don't know about Titan and Titan, but I do know like our universe. Like we are in a specific universe in the Marvel multiverse that like comic book characters have crossed over to our universe. Like Peter Parker has met like Tobey Maguire and been like Spider-Man, and then like went off back into the multiverse again. So like we are a specific universe in the multiverse. The Marvel comic universe is its own universe that has many of the same properties as ours, but is not the same place.
So do we have Tobey Maguire? Is he ours?
Tobey Maguire is here, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So to go a little further on that, Earth 616 is the main continuity of Marvel, and I think that Earth 616 is like based on the current Earth, and so our solar system exists inside of the galaxy that Earth 616 is in. But because Marvel is so much larger than just the Milky Way, I think that there is the possibility of both a Titan that is Saturn's moon and a Titan that is a planet outside of the galaxy. I don't know which one Thanos lives on.
Got it.
Yeah, so the story of the creation of the Eternals is pretty set that they do reference Titan, the moon of Saturn, but I think as it's gone on, they've kind of grayed those lines. Like in Avengers Infinity War, like Titan that they're on is, I'm pretty sure, not the Titan that is the moon of Saturn. However, that's so in the weeds that I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
And if they were to reference Titan in like the Eternals movie, they're not going to make it the moon of Saturn. They're just going to be like, this is a planet called Titan. To worry more about it is to put more exposition in that no one needs.
Cool.
Yeah.
So to talk about the origin. So like I said, the Eternals were created by Celestials. And so these all-powerful beings in the universe called Celestials, they visited Earth 5 million years ago to conduct these experiments on proto-humans, so like early stages of evolution for humans. And they created two different races. So they created the Eternals, who look mostly human. They live effectively forever. And they have superpowers. So super strength, super speed, durability, blah, blah, blah. And then they also created what are called the Deviants, which are visibly deformed the versions effectively of Eternals. They're so very similar, but they look gross.
You mean there's a foil character to the main character?
Yeah, man. And you know what? I'm gonna jump the shark and get ahead of myself and just tell you, I think the biggest storylines of the Celestials are them, or of the Eternals, are them just dealing with the Deviants. Like that's probably why it didn't do well, because like you've created good character and bad character, and now they fight.
Well,
Oh,
if
cool.
it fits, it ships for
Great.
one low flat rate.
Yeah. But you talked about the Celestials, and so the Marvel Cinematic Universe has introduced some Celestials. So to note, the one that is probably the most prominent would be Ego, the Living Planet. Peter Quill's father, he is a Celestial.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And so I mean, there are definitely some other ones that, so there's Ego, the Living Planet. We have, I think I talk a little bit about him later, so I don't want to get too ahead of that. But I guess the other ones that are of note in Guardians of the Galaxy, they go to Nowhere, which is actually the severed head of a Celestial that is floating in outer
right.
space.
Yep.
The being that held the Power Stone and like destroyed a whole planet in the flashback of Guardians of the Galaxy from the Collector, that is most likely a Celestial. And then we haven't seen him yet, but Galactus would also be considered a Celestial.
I was going to ask, is Galactus a Celestial?
Yeah, I don't know if he originally was, but I'm pretty sure he is now like considered one because he eats planets.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're a Celestial. Like,
So
I mean-
I'll clear up some multiverse stuff while we're so our universe in the Marvel multiverse is we are on Earth 199,999. That is our universe according to the Marvel multiverse theory. And the let me find the movie. The movie universe is its own universe.
mhm.
That one
And-
is 1999.99. Earth 1999. Shit. Earth 1999.99
yes,
is the
I'm
MCU.
sorry. I'm sorry. That is the MCU. That's the one I said is not us, but the movies. And
I
then
hate
we
this.
are.
I hate this.
Mhm.
It's this is very important stuff. And then we are Earth 1218. That is our continuity.
So the reason why those things I think are all really important is because they can do wonky shit in different universes, like the Marvel Zombies storyline and
Yeah.
like the What If storyline, and that's how you end up with Marvel teams that are both, Wolverine and Old Man Logan. Like they pull people from other realities.
It is also the foundation of the Spider-Verse movie that
Yeah.
that they pull from like actual continuities of alternate comic universes in that movie. Very well, might I add. Spider-Verse was incredible.
Yeah, it was.
So something else to pull from this before we kind of go on. So for Eternals, they aren't fully immortal, but they might as well be because they basically live forever. They can breed with regular humans because most of them even look pretty human. But when an Eternal makes a child with a normal human, it is a human child with normal, longevity, durability, except for there was one specific exception. But I honestly, I didn't know about it and I'm not going to go into it because I don't think it matters. And if that ends up being the plot of the Eternals, then I'm sorry, I've wasted everyone's time. So
We'll properly punish Todd if that is the case.
we'll go back and we'll do a specific wiki reading of the child of Thena. So not worried about it. So we've got the Eternals and we've got the Deviants. Eternals being the good guys, Deviants being like the ugly cousins. So as things tend to go, a civil war breaks out between the Eternals. There is kind of a conflict of, we are these like long living basic gods on Earth. We should rule over these races.
And so this is not the Eternals versus the Deviants. This is
No,
Eternals
it's Eternals.
versus Eternals.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the Union and the Union's angry cousin
Got
against one another. And so you basically got these two brothers, Kronos and Uranos, and they are in conflict over we should rule over them and we should not rule over them. So Uranos, being the aggressive brother, is the one that's like, no, we're going to rule over them. We are the ultimate people here. Well, Kronos won. And he's like, you get the heck out of here. Uranos goes to build a society on Uranus. So see how that
Nice.
kind of works? Yeah. So anyway, they're out there. They're doing a colony thing at Uranus, whatever. Ultimately, they're like, no, we're going back to Earth. We're gonna go back. And so on their way back, they were attacked by a Kree ship, and they were forced to land on a moon of Saturn. So that moon's name is Titan, and so that's how they end up on Titan ultimately. Now, some other important notes while we're here. Those Kree captured an Eternal, made it to Earth, and did some experiments on some humans on Earth, and that's actually what created the Inhumans.
The failed TV show, if anyone
the
saw
failed
that.
Oh man!
But the pretty good comic book series.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, and I don't know if that was the original story, if they retconned that in later or not, but that is ultimately what did take place. So that's kind of how the Inhumans came from the Eternals, which came from the Celestials, and we'll come back to the Kree eventually. But anyway, at this point now, you've got these Eternals on Titan, the moon of Saturn. So back on Earth, you've got Kronos, the winning brother. He's doing like sciencey experiments and doing his shit, and as one would expect, a large release of energy explodes and activates latent genes in the Eternals.
As it does.
Classic.
As you do.
And so I think what's bigger here is that explosion completely destroys Kronos's, physical body and leaves him immaterial. And so everything that I could see, he kind of looks like Dr. Manhattan, but he's made out of space and time. He instead of being giant and blue, he's just like galaxy.
Cool.
Yeah. So he
rad.
just physically does not exist. He's just a concept of space and time. So they need a new leader. The Eternals of Earth, or I think they refer to Earth as Terran as well. They need to find a new leader. So the Eternals have the ability to meld into one singular form called the Unimind, because that makes sense.
All of these names are so like incredibly obvious.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in here, and I do believe Stan Lee has gone on record to say him and Jack Kirby were doing a lot of
drugs.
at this
Yeah.
time.
All of the drugs.
That's like me saying like, this guy has a hammer, I'm gonna call him Hammer Guy.
I love it though, because it's so like it's so two dudes in 1979 doing
Yep.
a shitload of LSD saying, what if they all came together and became one mind? Like a unified mind. Holy shit. A unimind.
How much Pink Floyd can I play behind Matt saying that before we get taken off Spotify?
I don't know, but I'm willing to take the risk and find out.
And like there's talk. I mean, the Unimind is kind of a thing that happens. I guess they're just able to meld into this being of the Unimind, and the picture of it looks weird. It's like a big brain floating
But
in
this is
like
different.
neon soup.
This is different than the Big Baby Man, right?
Not the same thing. We're not gonna mention the Watcher ever again.
Okay.
Not in this podcast today.
Second question: is this Zordon?
It's not.
It's not
I
Zordon, but
imagine-
it might also be Zordon.
But like the
It
way
could
the
be.
Unimind talks, the Unimind definitely talks like those floating brains in Futurama.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so you've got all the existing Eternals of Earth. They've melded together to decide which one of Kronos' sons would rule, either Zurus or Alars. The Unimind chooses Zurus. And so Alars, feeling like slighted, is like, you know what? Peace out. I'm going to go to Titan where the other Eternals are, and I'm going to join up there because if I hang out here, I think I'm going to be angry and we're going to have another civil war. No one wants that. So Alars, he's like, I'm out. So good guy, that Alars, decides to leave.
I'm going to jump in one more time and say,
Get it.
These names are worse than like the shuffled up names with added X's from Kingdom Hearts.
There are going to be some pretty cool names later, but yeah, Zurus and Alars.
I'm just I'm waiting for a name that I recognize, and it's not happening.
You're not going to get that for
Andrew's like
at least another 10 minutes.
Andrew's like floating out in this like looking for anything he
Trying
can
to
cling,
grab
like a point of
anything.
reference he can.
I'm
cling
lost in a
to.
cul-de-sac, and I'm just waiting every turn to be like, that's the turn that I recognize as street, and I'm not recognizing the streets, and I'm very scared.
Well, so let me give you some more names then. So Alars ends up going back to Titan, the moon of Saturn, and he actually finds out that whole civilization of Eternals that had been there are gone. There's been some sort of war that has taken place. It supposedly was started by the Moon Dragon, but I didn't know.
Nope,
Fucking
there's not a moon
rad.
dragon. There's not a moon
Hell yeah,
dragon.
it was.
Nope.
Guys, this is my favorite Dragon Force album.
So I have the show notes, and if you go through what I've written, I have not made any mention of the Moon Dragon because I'm like, fuck it, not even touching it. I don't want to know. But that's me telling you there was more.
I hate the moon dragon.
Anyway, there are the Titanian Eternals are gone. Alars shows up to Titan and finds only one sole surviving woman named Suisan, Sui-SAN. So I assume that's Suisan. So apparently, since they're the only two people on this they're the literal only two people on this planet, they fall in love. That's,
That's how it works.
how you're the last two people on Earth.
Yep.
And so they decide to repopulate the planet with new Titanian Eternals. A subnote that everything I read and watched said is that the Eternals that they create on Titan are not as powerful as the Earth-based Eternals, but were more powerful than the Eternals that had been there before. I don't know if that's important. For all that we know, that could be one of those, like, each symbiote creates a stronger symbiote thing. Sometimes it totally matters. Sometimes it totally doesn't. But that's just
It's just like the byline they put in, so that's like, this is how we're fighting power creep. Like, we're not, these aren't more powerful guys. Calm down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who knows? And so back on Earth, we have Zurus, who is the Earth-based Eternals. And what's important, because this is all still like millions of years in the past, under his rule, there are 3 Eternals cities that were built, because the original one was leveled when Kronos exploded himself. Olympia, which is in Greece, which has often been like the bridge between Marvel's Olympians, the Eternals, and other Marvel heroes. So if you think like Hercules and Zeus and those things, they come from Greece, which has often been linked to Olympia, which Marvel's pretty vague about like what their power background is. So who knows? They could also be listed as Eternals. I couldn't find anything that actually said what the story of Hercules, the Marvel hero, in his true origin in 2019 is. I'm not going to look anymore. I can't Google Hercules Marvel history any longer. I have too many tabs open. But anyway, under Zurus's rule, 3 more Eternal cities were built. Olympia in Greece, Polaria in Siberia, and Oceania in the Pacific Ocean.
So how many Eternals are we down to at this point?
There's a whole society.
Okay,
I mean,
so-
it's not like 5.
Okay, it's like there's a shit ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but this is all still happening, 5 million years ago or whatever. And that kind of all is just the story for a long time. And then the next time jump takes us to 18,000 years ago from where we're currently at. So the Celestials return back to Earth to be like, hey, let's see how things are going. There's been like 1.5 civil wars. I wonder what's up. And when they get there, the Celestials are attacked by the Deviants that are like chilling there. And so now it's Celestials versus the Deviants, the bad things they created. All the while, Eternals are trying to help save like human lives on Earth. That's kind of their thing. They're trying to play interference and be good guys. That's actually super important, and I'll mention it later in some speculation, but during that war, the area that Oceania was in ends up getting destroyed, and I don't know if this is true canon or not, or if this is just going to end up being a stretch, but parts of Oceania contains the Atlanteans,
Yes.
which end up in the lost city of Atlantis,
That's like
kind of thing.
Namor
Yeah.
and all those guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
So
Oh, we did it.
So that's
we found it.
Yeah, so
I found a name. All
you
right.
solved. There's one. You get a penny. You get a sticker now. So the only other, I think important chronological timeline thing that happens there is when they reintroduce the Eternals, and I forget at what point when this was, Thor runs into some of them 1,000 years ago, but because reasons in comic books, the Celestials mind wiped him and said like, oh, you never knew that these things even happened.
Ugh.
Like, that's their weird way of, I'm sure at some point in time he remembered, and they're like, we tried to hide that information to protect you.
That's like the line in Star Wars that they wiped C-3PO and R2-D2's memory
Yeah.
to like
That is
hand wave
that
over
is exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
why none of that makes any sense. And
He done got Norded. He got Norded.
got the Nord treatment. Okay, so this is all kind of me trying to tell a story to get you ready for the movie that'll happen in like a year and a half. There are already some plot synopsis statements. There's already a list of potential characters. So I wanted to pick out 5 characters that I think have a pretty good odd of they all have good odds of showing up in the movie, just so you kind of know who they are. So you're like, oh, I've heard that name or I've seen that person. The first one is Icarus, which is actually spelled Icarus with a K and an I. It's yeah. Well, and it gets better. So all these.
Does he have wings and fly too close to the sun?
No. He is a Superman-esque kind of creature. Very pretty situation. Like,
Okay.
Anyway, he's like the original Eternal. He's in issue 1. And so his backstory is while fighting deviants near Greece, Icarus, met a woman and fell in love with her and had a son who was named Icarus. Yeah.
Good.
So Icarus loved to like fly through the air with his father. So his father, who at that point didn't have a name, apparently, builds him mechanical wings and everything goes great, right?
Yeah.
So
And nothing goes wrong and everyone's happy.
yeah, so that's the exact story. Like his son tries to use the mechanical wings to like go and help his dad or something and ends up in the atmosphere or whatever, he dies. So Icarus takes on the name as homage to his dead son, who he killed, kind of, when you think about it.
Yeah.
He loaded the gun and gave it to him, so...
Yeah, no, I will agree. I Googled Icarus Marvel, and this is someone who is very designed to be a pretty character.
Yeah, he's... When you like flowing blonde hair, like pretty godlike chiseled face.
Yeah, very Dorito shaped. Like,
yeah. Another fun fact that I picked up while kind of researching some of these characters, apparently Icarus was also part of the original team that first met and was thought to have destroyed Apocalypse.
Oh,
So that's like
Good for
a
that
fun,
guy.
like, yeah, Apocalypse who like lives forever and is worshipped as a god. And I don't think he's not a deviant. He might be a deviant. Who the fuck knows at this point? I don't know.
yeah. The Fantastic Four certainly doesn't know.
We're
that
playing
the Fantastic
Calvin ball
Four
here.
movie?
Yeah, it's all.
So can I ask this question?
Yeah.
Is the purpose of this to connect it to everything else, or is the purpose of this to be an isolated story?
So I can you hold the question until the question answer portion of the presentation?
Deal.
That because I've kind of got in the end of this some speculation that I have, and that
Okay.
is a thing that is a specific
Cool.
question
We'll get
that
there.
I am
We'll get
ready
there.
to present and ask.
Got it. Okay, keep going.
So 4 other characters that I think could be important. So another one is Cersei. Cersei, also super powerful, lives forever, blah, blah. She can manipulate things at a molecular and an atomic level. So think Magneto, but for everything. Like, and not just like manipulate things, but like change things into other things. And so Cersei, she is canonically placed throughout lore and history. And like examples include she met Homer and inspired the Odyssey.
Sure.
Of course.
Yeah, because like in the Odyssey, where there was Cersei who turned turned men into pigs and locked. She was also the one who locked imps in Pandora's box, and Cersei is canonically also the one that helped Merlin defend Camelot in the court of King Arthur. So like
She's the Forrest
That's
Gump
pretty
of the
awesome.
Marvel universe.
Yeah, this is great.
So, yeah, she's either the Forrest Gump of the Marvel universe, or she's like Wolverine for all the historical American wars.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There could literally be a cut scene montage of her like just doing that stuff.
Which I have to say might be one of my favorite and the coolest scenes ever in a Marvel movie.
I liked it.
Wolverine and Sabretooth fighting in all the American wars. Was it hokey? Goddamn right, but I loved it.
I am such a sucker for things like that, though, when it's like, this person was threaded throughout all of history, and not like, we called her many names, but it was always the same person. I'm such a sucker for that. And it's cheesy and awful every time, and I love it.
That was what was so cool about the Watchmen, because they took that a step further, and they're like, what if we had this like, unstoppable force and he like Dr. Manhattan wins the Vietnam
Yeah.
War, and that creates the alternate timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's such a cool concept.
Well, if you like that idea, wait until I tell you about Makari.
Nope, I'm off the wagon again.
So Makari, who again, like kind of in this graying of the line of the Eternals become true gods and viewed as gods. He has super speed, and he's actually been called Mercury as well. And so his thing is like over the billions of years, millions of years, whatever they end up calling it. He just kind of hangs out and sometimes intervenes in society to protect people. So he was taught philosophy by Plato, and he has also been like placed in historical events and watched them go down, like the Trojan Horse, the reign of Vlad the Impaler, and he was also present at the Alamo.
Okay.
Oh, that's so good.
Like
That's so
just like
good.
stuff.
Good.
And like
Was he wearing
'cause
a
again,
little?
you have
Was
to
he
think-
wearing like a Davy Crockett hat?
No, I want him to be a celestial tourist with like flip flops and a camera. Like-
Well, and it's just so funny too, because I mean, you think if these are creatures that are effectively immortal, they've just watched this stuff happen. So those are at least like three of the good guys that I think you'll probably see show up. And so a couple baddies. So Crow is the leader of the deviant race, and he is very, very so much a deviant. He's a pretty prominent shapeshifter in that most shapeshifters, it's like, oh, if they're shot or they're unconscious, they go back to their normal default appearance. He is not that. He can maintain his set appearance of whatever he chooses to be. For funsies, he likes to show up as a devil to people. So I think he's actually been rumored to be like the devil because, again, he can just do that. I could not find, like, again, I think the Eternals and the Deviants were created pretty two-dimensionally to begin with, so it was really hard to find, like, famous storylines that weren't X fights Y.
Right.
Yeah.
Until at least later when they're like, oh, we've got this product that we need to do something with and make it better.
Right.
So the fifth one and the last one I want to talk about is Druid. And so Druid is kind of exactly what you were saying. I think it was Kyle, where you're like, I love watching things get set in history or whatever.
Yeah.
So Druid at last print in 2006 was serving as Deputy Prime Minister of Vorozhika, a fictional country in the USSR.
Good.
So, like, he has been known to be a KGB agent and enjoys torturing people. I think he is effectively like this timeless thing that keeps like reinventing himself as a terrible like being.
Yeah.
In fictitious Russia, and goes by the name Ivan Druid.
They just changed one letter from Ivan Drago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
Like
That's-
no,
yeah.
that's
Rocky
gonna be
Four
a-
was in the background as they were smoking weed and being like, "Oh fuck, let's put him in Verashnikov." Yeah,
That's gonna be a scene in the movie. Actually, is this character? It's gonna be part of the montage. This character punching out a Sylvester Stallone lookalike.
Well, and his powers aren't anything that's super. So they all have like super durability, super strength, or something else like that. And it's not like his powers are anything crazy over anyone else, but he just seems to be like a bad Eternal, not a deviant. And the early plot synopsis that I read said that he is rumored to be the big bad. I'll come back to like I think what that could end up being. But what I do want to do is something we kind of started talking about is, where does this kind of connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? So we've got this thing that's been built for over 10 years, and now you're introducing a property that came to be 5 billion years ago. One of the early things I said is, Celestials created the Eternals by experimenting on proto-humans. And like I said, we have at least 3 known Celestials in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that is Ego, the Living Planet, the Severed Nowhere Head, where they're like mining brain matter out of it to do something with it, but we never really find out. And most likely that destroyer from Guardians of the Galaxy that uses the Power Stone. And like I said, honorable mention goes to Galactus because now Marvel should have his rights back, and I don't know how he's not a Celestial. So I think that's one very clear example of how Celestials exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they've like messed with things. I mean, Ego was trying to do everything he wanted to take over the universe to make it more powerful for him, whatever the plan was.
Yeah.
Remind me, which place was nowhere? Was that the Forge, or was that the place that they saw Thanos?
It's not where they saw Thanos.
It's where the Collector lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they did see Thanos there
Yeah.
in
Oh,
Infinity
yeah,
War.
yeah,
That's where he
yeah,
turns
Infinity
his
War.
gun into bubbles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the things that makes me think. So I mean, there are other powerful beings in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that are probably not Celestials, but could potentially be Eternals, right? So we have the Collector. We have, what was Jeff Goldblum's character, the Game Master,
The Grandmaster.
Grandmaster. Yeah. So we've got super powerful beings. I mean, and heck, if they wanted to take another weird way, they could tie like Thor's world and like the Asgardians, and like maybe Odin is a Celestial, or Asgard can be its own thing. But this at least tells you there are Celestials in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We just don't know who could be
What they do.
Eternals.
What they do.
Yeah.
Why. Yeah.
So then they could tie in a new Men in Black movie about the
Oh,
Men
boy.
in Black pulling the Eternals out of everyday citizens, because it's what this is starting to sound like.
Well, so I'll go a little bit deeper here too and talk about more connections of Celestials. So I know we talked about this before we started recording. Andrew and I have seen Captain Marvel. I know you two have not. It is comic book canon that the Celestials not just created the Eternals and the Deviants, they also created the Kree and the Skrulls by experimenting on proto versions of their races as well. So basically, there's now been a foundation laid that if any weird culture race has a special power or ability or something exceptional, the Celestials probably messed with them. So the fact that the Skrulls can like shapeshift, Celestials did that.
So
Go
ahead. You're gonna say.
Well, I was gonna say the fact that the Kree are super smart and have technological advances. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, they
I
don't. They don't
It's-
have an inherent ability. That was my question.
I would say they're probably super smart. I mean,
Okay.
that seems
So
fair.
before Captain Marvel, the two main Kree characters are who? Ronan and Nebula. Is Nebula Kree?
I don't know if Nebula is technically Kree because she's more like she's more robot than anything.
Nebula,
Yeah.
Nebula's manufactured.
Yeah,
Not fully.
Well,
Not
well,
fully.
she started as a biological person, and then
Mm-hmm.
Thanos replaced parts. And
her
pretty sure she
so
was
the only
Kree.
reason I would say she's probably not Kree, and only because one, I haven't looked. I'll just lay that out, but her comic book version looks very, very, very different than what she looks like in the movies. And I think you look at the movie and you can say, oh, she might be Kree. You look at the comic books and she just looks weird. Like all female superheroes that were created in the past 40 years,
Right.
But the point being that this kind of lays the ground that if Marvel wanted to explain something weird or a weird power or whatever, they can rely on the Celestials and say that they messed with them. My point is the Celestials are the Fire Emblem. They are everything. They could be nothing. That kind of leaves us there. I think the other point to take home here that kind of lays some groundwork is the Eternals have now in Marvel canon stepped into the roles of the gods of the Marvel universe. Alongside Norse mythology and the Asgardians and Thor and the other Olympian gods like Hercules, but I think they're kind of graying those lines.
Yeah.
So we've kind of got gods on Earth is what you would
Thor
look
is
at.
not an Eternal.
No.
He's not, but he could be. Like, that's the thing. If they wanted to, Marvel could blend those lines and decide they want to do that, and it would totally make sense. But in Marvel comic canon, no, he is not.
To touch on your Celestials are the Fire Emblem and can do everything.
Yeah.
There was I don't remember if it was the Ultimate series of comics or the main series of comics, but it was the Celestials were also behind the X gene as well.
Yeah.
Like they were the reason, and it was wildly unpopular, and everyone was mad, so they retconned it. But that was,
They said, "Whoops, never mind."
It's like it's like if someone came out and said that there were little microscopic cells that allowed you to be connect with the Force or not. That would be crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was about as upsetting to the fan base as midichlorians were.
Well, but that was like basically the plot of, I think it was the first or second season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That everyone had something and this was going to reactivate it.
Yeah, like they are Inhumans. That's because
Right.
that was before they had the rights to say mutant because they had sold it to Sony, and so it was the Interrogen crystal that when it broke around you, it would activate a special gene inside of you.
Wait, I thought Fox had the rights for the mutants.
Right.
Did I say? Yeah, you're right.
You said Sony. Sony had Spider-Man.
My bad. You're definitely right.
And I think that's why people were so upset, was because it made the X-Men just like another Inhumans and not their own thing. But like I said, it was wildly unpopular and everyone was mad, so they changed it.
And I would also go in on that. I think that when they started dumping, gasoline on the fire that was Inhumans to try and like make that take root, I think that was when they thought, we're not getting X-Men back.
Yeah.
We need something. Let's do this. And now, of course, like they've kind of abandoned that. I've not watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. since the beginning of the Ghost Rider season. So I don't really know where they're at.
Fun fact, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. apparently is like consistently the highest like ratings draw show on television.
Shoot.
It is very good. Like
it is very good, but it's like
very, very good.
But it, like week after week, it just like brings in the numbers apparently, and I was very shocked to learn that.
So I want to get to another. I've got one more good tie-in to the current Marvel Cinematic Universe that I think will have a name that Andrew remembers, and I want him to feel included.
I'm still here.
So way back when. Remember when I talked about Alars and Suisan repopulating the moon of Saturn, Titan? Does the name Alars sound familiar, Andrew?
Yes.
So the callback I have here that kind of does tie the Celestials to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a big way. In Avengers Infinity War, the Red Skull refers to Thanos as Thanos, son of Alars. So that is because, so like it's a very real canonical thing that Thanos is the son of Alars. Furthermore, when Thanos was born, he had this like purple, gross grimace skin. He had been transformed by like the deviant gene, which I think his mother might have been a deviant or something. But like, and if anything, a dormant deviant gene activated in him. And his mother was driven mad when she saw that he was born purple. She had to be like taken away and like institutionalized. And so anyway, years later, like she came back and tried to kill him. Because she's like, I can sense the evil in you. Like you're going to do all this terrible stuff. And Thanos's father stopped him. But all of that kind of fits into Thanos being referred to as the Mad Titan.
Got it.
Titan is his home world. His mother tried to kill him. He has this deviant gene in him. So that is at least the most direct tie that we have from current Marvel Cinematic Universe to the Eternals.
So we're all on the same page that this whole like deviant thing is very like eugenicsy, right? Like
it's
like, why would they do that?
Yes.
Why would they create the deviants? What was the purpose behind it?
To go even worse, like if you really want to get into some shit, which we'll do this. So when it was created in like the late 70s, all of unless they are an Eternal that like just looks different because like that's fun, all of the Eternals are white. Every last one of them. Not a single one in any picture I saw isn't white. And if they're not white, it's because they're like a blue monster or a green monster or a red monster. Like they're all white. And so what I do think is good, though, is in the casting right now that they've put out or they had put out, if there are any, there are very, very, very few race restrictions on what they're looking for in their actors and actresses. I think especially for a couple, they've not even listed like age range. Like we are looking for, a person who has this personality or whatever. They're not restricting race on any of these, at least that I saw, which is good, knowing the history being so problematic for what they were doing. So now comes like the question of what does all this mean for the Eternals movie? Like what could come from this? And so I've got a couple things there was a rumor that we'll meet one or two Eternals in Avengers Endgame. And I mean, I don't really know who that could be, but the two names that kind of stick out to begin with, one
act
is
like I do.
Yeah, I mean, based upon what I like learned and what I know, so Icarus being like the main character seems like a pretty easy one. Like if there's a timeless protector of Earth, Icarus could certainly be that timeless protector. The other one is a name called Star Fox, which is not like
Awesome.
Star Fox Final Destination, no
that's,
weapons.
And that's how we get our Marvel Nintendo crossover movie.
Hell yeah, it is. Hell yeah, it is.
And all our podcast dreams come true.
Yeah.
So there was some like long ago when they announced Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and they had said, you're going to meet Peter's dad. There was a lot of speculation as to who Peter Quill's dad would be, because it is actually Jason or Jason in the comic books, but he's not important enough to make him the main character. Other people speculated it would be Star Fox because Star Fox is Thanos' younger brother. And he's I think he's overall a good guy in the storylines, but
I remember around that time too, because there was like then the rumors that David Hasselhoff was on set. So there were all, like the rumors that David Hasselhoff was gonna be Star Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question. So Thanos, we hear from Red Skull, is the son of Alars, correct?
Yes.
And Alars was one of the two people who repopulated the planet of Titan, correct?
Yes.
So, okay, yes, I understand that Star Fox is Thanos' younger brother, but because Thanos is the son of the two people who repopulated the whole planet, doesn't that mean he has, like, a whole planet's worth of younger siblings?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, okay, if there's one thing I learned from growing up in a strong Christian family, it's when they started talking about repopulating areas, it just got really fuzzy and they moved on. And I'm wondering...
They yada yada a lot of the details. That was
like
was where my mind went too. Is like,
I think
the
it's,
details of that are important.
I think it's more how like the Titans are technically Zeus's children because he just kind of threw them up one day.
Yeah.
Like I think
Yeah.
it's like that.
And let's just lay it all out on the table. You've seen any of those like Marvel family trees just with the X-Men?
Oh,
Shit
yeah.
is so messed up.
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's so not important.
It's super bonkers.
Yeah, but that's your point
X-Men
is
are
right.
all Eskimo brothers.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that I had the name. Like, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making things up and finding a flaw that didn't actually exist. But I'm happy to acknowledge that the flaw exists and then walk right by it and wave.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it is. I mean, if they were to tell that sort of story, maybe he goes there with a group of people, who whatever. So yeah, I think another good option would be Star Fox, him being like the brother of Thanos.
Plus, then we get some sweet space dog fights. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a
you
barrel
get,
roll.
You get the furry crowd in. It's great.
I think we're trying to figure out like how does this fit in. So the next point I've got is that it's rumored to be set in the past. Like this is set as the origin of the Eternals. If we are meeting Eternals, a couple Eternals in the end game, we're obviously going to learn why they're there in the Eternals movie. And maybe it's one of those things where they sit on the sidelines and as Eternals, they sit on the sidelines and they watch culture happen and they try not to get involved. And then obviously this is such a big thing that Thanos, who is technically an Eternal, he has now interjected himself into the universe's happenings. And so the other Eternals now have to pay attention as well.
I have two
Yeah.
questions.
2 questions. Let's hear them.
One, you're saying the Eternals sit back on the sidelines and watch. How is that different than the Watcher?
I made it very clear we're not getting involved with that again. No, and I mean, I don't know what the Watcher's status is in the Marvel Universe other than Stan Lee was talking to the Council of the Watchers or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe they are Celestials. Maybe they are Eternals. Who knows?
I looked it up when we talked about it just now.
Nice.
Current comic canon is the Watchers are their own extraterrestrial race that just are collecting. They're collecting knowledge. That's their whole shtick. where the Eternals are a little more hands-on, but
Got it.
not so much.
Second is a real question. What is Dormammu? Would
He's
he?
a demon.
Oh, okay. So there are also
yeah.
demons in this world that's different from the deviants.
Yeah, he's a demon from another plane, which I mean, I'm pretty sure all the Eternals and the Deviants exist just on like our plane.
Yeah.
Whereas Dormammu is literally from a different.
So is that like Mephisto, that stuff?
I think so. I mean, I don't really know too much about the status of Mephisto, but yeah, like, I mean, Doctor Strange had to go to another plane to deal with, or I take that back. In Doctor Strange, they were opening up like and summoning Dormammu to their like our current plane from a different one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, sounds good.
I regret asking that.
Well, and so the question is, will this is going to be something set, as the origin of the Eternals, which is cool. And then maybe it sets them into what they're doing now. I don't know. But kind of to Kyle's point where they talked about retconning the background of X-Men, I kind of have the speculation that they're going to explain the Eternals as the origin of like everything.
Yeah.
Like they are going to use the Celestials giving power to proto-humans to create Eternals and Deviants as this is how powers began, or this is like a balance that was created in the universe. They could also, I mean, I don't know if they say the Celestials create the Infinity Stones, but they could easily say that the Celestials were the things that created the Infinity Stones.
I think they did actually in that flashback cutscene.
I can't remember what Wong actually says about like the origin of them. And so another piece that Andrew, I think we'd all actually gotten to earlier, in that old conflict with the Celestials, the Eternals, and the Deviants, that continent was destroyed that had Oceania on it. And it's noted that the Eternals saved as many as they could in that encounter. I think that draws a pretty clear line to Atlantis, the Atlanteans, and a great origin story for Namor. And I don't know if that's actually in the canon. I kind of like was reading details and I was like, this is what it sounds like, and I'm going to go with that. And if I'm right, I'm right. And if I'm wrong, whatever, it's speculation.
Whatever, it's my podcast.
Yeah, like I may have just told the exact story that's already being told, or I just may have like. Even if that's not the history of Namor, at this point, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has built so much that they kind of have to decide what else do they want to build in. Like, do they want to explain why there are Atlanteans, or do they just want to say there are Atlanteans?
Yeah, they've already started their own continuity, so they can keep diverging further and further, and it would be less and less offensive, if that's the right word.
Namor is already somewhat planted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because in Iron Man 2, when they were talking about, all the recruits for the Avengers project or whatever, there was a dot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And there was also a dot in Africa, which is thought to be Black Panther, but the dot in the Pacific Ocean, I don't know if it says anything on the dot, but I think that is definitely like, that is Namor.
I'm sure he was one of those names in the text scroll in Winter Soldier 2. They do that. All the threats.
Yeah, of all the people of interest.
Yeah.
A child scientist, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, that is kind of where I end up after doing all this research and thinking about the Celestials and where we're at now. I mean, are there things that stick out to you guys? Like, do you have thoughts? Do you think any of this is totally bogus? Are you like, man, that Thanos, connection blows my mind, man? That's Andrew talking. That's how
I sound.
I did like the Thanos draw. I will say, I would like to see the Celestials and Eternals show up in the MCU. I don't know if I want a whole Eternals movie.
You're getting it. They're casting it. It starts filming in August.
It just feels so different and like not stale isn't the right word, but just like I don't know. Like the whole point of Marvel is like these are actual humans with actual human problems, with superhuman abilities.
It was kind of more like for me, it's like everything is tied back to Earth, and the things that aren't have a very good reason for not being, like the Asgardians and then the aliens in Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. But like I don't know if the Eternals come in and we start getting like too deep into like gods and shaping history through those gods, it loses touch
It
a
just
little
becomes Transformers, because
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you just have a
Mhm.
bunch of giant fighting robots, and you need a main character who's gonna fall in love with a hot chick. So then you have to bring in Shia LaBeouf, and now we just got Transformers.
I just like I guess the way I see it is if they bring in the Eternals and sort of treat them as this like, you know, the Eternals are the spark of a lot of these fuses, and like it is the Eternals are the flap of the butterfly wings that causes all this other shit. I don't think that the Eternals are going to be what made the spider radioactive that bit Spider-Man.
Right.
Or,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they're not going to change that the Hulk is a product of gamma radiation. Like
Mhm.
they're not going to change those sort of things, but I think I see this movie being the MCU's like just like full cutting of the canon from the comic books and saying, all right, we've done it for 10 years. Here's the top of the Marvel Cinematic Universe canon, and everything else dilutes from this. You know,
could
it's
see
the
that.
full retcon, not like a retcon of the past, but just the breakaway as like, all right, Earth 1999 is its own thing, and every question you have traces back to this movie, and if it doesn't trace back to this movie, it's brought into the canon on its own.
It just the whole thing strikes me as like explaining things that don't need to be explained for the sake of explaining them, which
Yeah.
like was the problem with the Star Wars prequels, and not something I'm interested in an entire movie of, but would rather get like little hints thrown at me continually through the movies.
And so that's what I was just gonna say. So I think that if we go based on what like you just said and what Matt just said, you're getting maybe less, 2-minute montage cutaways in Guardians of the Galaxy when they say these beings, the Celestials, contained this power, and they're actually like showing you that. I almost envision this to be the origin story of like, the Eternals, and like that's great and everything, but it's going to talk about how the Celestials created power in the universe, and they're saying the Celestials are the beginning and end of everything.
Yeah.
And that, maybe this is, like Matt said, like this is the foundation of stuff, and they're going to say everything else is going to stem from here. Now that, you know what, here's my hope. My hope is that they resolve the Infinity Stones situation, and maybe it's going to be resolved with like the Eternals somehow being there, being like, no, we've watched for a long time, and like we're going to get involved now. But once the Infinity Stones are no longer the pressing MacGuffin of the rest of this series, for right now at least, they're going to show how the Celestials maybe created them.
You think it'll be an Infinity Stones origin story?
And then they're done with it, because we can't chase that MacGuffin for another 10 years.
Yeah, then you become The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the headlines of like, boycott Marvel because they say there's no God, the Eternals are God,
Yeah.
or something. The same reason they hate like Harry Potter or whatever. It's like,
Well, so Todd's point brings me to a similar thought, and again, I don't know how I feel about it, but I feel like we're all kind of done with Thanos. But like knowing that there's that very clear connection, I wonder if this would be a Thanos origin story.
And it could be
that
it
too.
definitely.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, like they're all timeless. I mean, what Thor says, he's lived for thousands of years, and I mean, if they go off the Eternals also living for millions of years, or they can make up whatever timeline they want for the Eternals. It doesn't matter. I would say this: if they're doing an Eternals storyline, I do not believe it can be done without referencing Thanos.
right.
Yeah.
There's a less than 0% chance. Do they talk? Maybe they'll completely they'll really skip over the deviants, as far as the deviants are a deviant gene. Like some people are just born bad, or something. I don't know. That's a weird message to go with. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to not think about that.
We'll workshop
Hopefully
that later.
they leave
Yeah.
eugenics off the
Yeah.
Yeah.
storyboard.
Yeah, so I don't really know. I mean, I think I do think it's going to have to do with like protecting Earth, if that is their origin, because that's what it was. And maybe I don't know. I really do think it's going to have to do more with like the Celestials' role, because so much now is rumored that Marvel is going to kind of focus on, galaxy-wide things on this side and like more Earth-based things on this side. And this could be their expanse to be like, no, there's a full galaxy of all this shit. And we've just started to scratch the surface by jumping you to different planets. And now we want to explain just how big that actually is and how much power is actually out there.
I just worry that, and I know it, like, they did it pretty well in Guardians of the Galaxy. I just worry that it's going to be like an hour and a half of exposition, like tied together with half an hour of plot.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
And they don't have James Gunn anymore, who does that really well. Like, that's my concern.
The ideal intro, right? And I'm gonna paint the picture for you. The ideal intro for the Eternals movie is just like that of the Hercules animated movie. It is
Exactly
three
the
lines,
same.
three lines of exposition, song and dance. Everything's explained in 8 minutes flat. 8 minutes flat with a chorus.
It'll be the first musical entry to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I mean, you joke. It's not so much a joke, but it's absolutely true, because like the thing is with these movies, you have to appeal to people that have no idea what they're walking into.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
Guardians was a huge risk. It was I mean, fuck, Iron Man was a huge risk. Like Iron Man even coming out, like a lot of people didn't know what Iron Man was. So to try to tell this convoluted ass story, which is like basically Marvel's like own book of Genesis, is it on paper, like the way that it's written now is virtually impossible. Like they're gonna have to. It's gonna need to be completely different, incredibly like way more streamlined. Have a character that's actually likable. It isn't just a bunch of mindless robots blowing each other to hell with fire.
Well, and that's they'll need another cast as good as the Guardians of the Galaxy were when they came out.
Well, and especially think about it this too. I mean, if this is truly an origin story to the MCU, I think it starts with whoever the existing Eternals are right now in the MCU, maybe the one or two that we get to meet, almost like telling the story of the origin. And then we get the origin, and then it has to cut us back to like normal time now.
I hope they do the exact opening to The Princess Bride, except it's Tony Stark reading to Peter Parker.
There you go.
That.
But the thing that I'm thinking is, I mean, so with the Eternals, like, is this going to be a thing that's planned to be its own? Like, is this an Eternals trilogy? Like, are they going to try and do 3 movies of the Eternals?
God.
Are those 3 movies set before Comet? Like the time now?
Are we positive it's a movie and not a series that'll be on Disney Plus too? Because that's a whole thing. Like,
I'm pretty sure it's a movie.
That's a really good.
I think
no, Kyle, that's a really good point. And I'm looking at the IMDb right now, and the people that are attached to this, they have screenwriters and a director attached to this. And I mean, not to put these people on blast, like I'm sure they're talented, but they're no James Gunn. Like they don't have a lot to their resumes. They have a lot. It's a lot of like short films. So it very well could be a like a Defenders kind of situation.
Yeah,
and I'm trying to find the slated movie lineup because I think they've been pretty quiet about everything that's coming.
Because they could have. I mean, because forever and ever there was talk of a Scarlet Witch movie, and that's now a series on Disney. It's going to be a series on Disney Plus. Like they could have concepted it as a movie, and now Disney is like, no, we need content for our streaming service. And it's really super heady and a lot of exposition. Make it a mini series now, or make it a 13 episode run. And if it's good, we'll continue it, kind of thing. Like, they, as much as they tell us, they also do keep a lot. They do play a lot close to the vest, and like it could be a mini series now on.
So here's what I would say. So I don't think it has been released yet. I'm looking at a Rotten Tomatoes article from a month ago. I don't think they've released the true film schedule after Infinity War, Endgame, aside from what we already know is, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And we tend to get 3 movies a year, 2 movies a year, like usually one in spring, one kind of summer, one in fall. And I don't know when Spider-Man 2 comes out. Wait, I've actually got it here. Yeah. July 5th. So we've got a summer one, and maybe we won't see one for the rest of the year, but I don't think they've actually stated which Marvel movies are the 2020 release dates. They've got dates out. They've got a May 1st release and a July 31st release and a November 6th release date marked.
Well, and if I had to guess, San Diego Comic-Con is on the 18th of July. That'll probably be your big
I was gonna
reveal.
say, I think it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't until after Avengers 2 that we got the big here's the breakdown of what the next 4 years leading up to Infinity Wars will look like.
And I bet you anything. So I'm going to go with Andrew on that one. Even if it's not then, but I'm going to say between your answer and Andrew's answer, they are going to release a full slate. And, I think we can, I don't want to read off the Rotten Tomatoes article to take their guesses, but I mean, if they've got movies coming up, I mean, there's some pretty obvious. So I know that Guardians had been slated as a release to come out, and once James Gunn was fired, they
Shelved
pushed
it.
that way back.
It's
Yeah.
shelved. It's
I know they're talking about still using the script. But I mean, I don't know what else has been there. So I think it'll be a couple solo movies. They won't try and touch another Avengers for a couple years. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what to expect as far as this being, if it will be a movie, if it will be a series. I think it'll probably be a movie. Hearing Kevin Feige say that he was a big fan of it, and I'm pretty sure they're casting it like a movie. But again, we won't know until they say, here's what to expect.
I mean, they're casting some of these shows on there like a movie too. Like Jon Favreau's doing the Mandalorian TV show.
Oh yeah, that'll be cool.
Like the Loki TV show is gonna that's Tom Hiddleston's next project is just.
Well, they're treating it, the comparison that I had heard when they first started talking about it was treating them like Game of Thrones esque.
Yeah.
Only they're gonna do it's a limited run story. And
they've got all the budget in the world. They can afford to.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna sign up for it.
Disney's
I'm gonna totally sign up for it.
$1 billion to make this project work. They're gonna
and think about it. We're just talking about the Marvel arm of Disney.
Yeah.
That's probably not even their biggest moneymaker.
No,
Not even
comparatively.
close.
I mean, you've got Star Wars, which made back doubled the $4 billion they spent on it on the first movie. You've got Disney, which they've just been printing money with the re-releases, the remakes.
It's only going to come out of the vault for a short more time.
Well, and they announced that this week that Disney Plus is going to include the entire Disney Vault unrestricted.
Oh my god!
So just the amount of subscription money that is going to pour into Disney.LLC is going to be disgusting.
Yeah, I'm gonna subscribe, but I'm not gonna be happy about it.
Gross.
Embrace the mouse.
Yeah.
I'll add that, and that makes 4 subscriptions I pay for now. So that's fine. It's still cheaper than cable.
I'll make Derek pay for that one. He uses my Netflix and Hulu.
Shout out to Derek. Well, I mean, if that's good with you guys, I think that's a good place to end it. Unless you have any more crazy speculation you want to make about what role the Eternals will play in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Walt Disney is an Eternal.
There you go.
I mean, he's frozen underneath Disneyland, so
he is the severed head floating in outer space.
Walt Disney is nowhere.
We'll let you know if the podcast continues after the millions of cease and desists
Oh,
Disney
man.
sends our way after that statement.
So we want to thank all of you for listening to this edition of Debate This Lorecast for the Eternals. Hopefully this has helped you learn a bit more about a lesser known piece of Marvel that will be entering our lives soon enough. Follow along with the argument on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Debate This Cast, and check out our website at debatethiscast.com. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review so more people can hear our ramblings into nerd culture. Until next time, I'm Todd Thomas.
I'm Kyle Stinky Diver Harper.
I'm Andrew, all hail the oligarchy, Henderson.
I am Matt. All of these stories fit into Dragon Force albums, Cole.
Saying, if you have an idea for a topic that needs unnecessary details explained, then let us know. And also fight us by the swing sets, nerds.
The longest motto ever.
Yeah.